I'd like to reintroduce you to the man who's just made you afraid of the dark, Brad Anderson!
Thank you. Jacob, come on out here. So I'm sure there's a multitude of questions, but we only have, what, 2 minutes?
We don't have a lot of time for the Q&A tonight, but let me start off by asking a couple of questions.
Of course.
Well, one, what attracted you to, this is almost kind of a departure from the zombie apocalypse films we've seen where it's more of a rapture apocalypse. What attracted you to the story, to Anthony's screenplay?
I think maybe to the fact that there weren't any real clear-cut explanations. You know? The fact that these people are sort of thrown into this apocalyptic scenario, but they're all searching and grappling to try to find answers, and in doing that, we kind of learn about this driving men. You know? So it was, to me, less the idea of maybe a movie which delivered an explanation as much as seeing how these poor souls kind of struggle with their own mortality in a way. That was what was interesting to me about it. And just, you know, the idea of how the technical and creative challenge of trying to make darkness into the monster in a way, as opposed to having, you know, it be some physical presence, having darkness itself be the danger, you know. So we did a lot of work in trying to create the, you know, the sort of shadow effects, or, you know, just how to create that sense of impending doom, but not have it be literalized in a figure. You know?
Much more than, I mean, when I first saw this, it was a work in progress. I saw it on a very small screen, and now seeing it in a space with a sound mix just makes a total difference. I mean, really work on that so hard.
Well, sound design is a really critical element, I think, in any sort of movie that deals with creating a dark, scary tone. You know? And a lot of the sort of elements in the sounds of darkness, where, you know, there are baby screams and slowed down baby wails and backwards seal barks and all sorts of fun kind of noises that, you know, that just felt very incongruous. That was always the idea, was find noises that didn't feel like they fit.
I'd like to ask you all about what attracted you to the script, and also it's a very different kind of, it's a very intense performance because you're dealing with a threat that isn't really physical. And, I mean, for a young actor like yourself, how did Brad give you direction on dealing with something which you really couldn't see?
Well, it was pretty easy. I've always felt fears like this before, and it was just kind of easy to just get into the character, and Brad just made me feel more comfortable on the set. So it's just how it worked out for
I was just trying to figure out what the story was about. There's so much you can infer on what's going on, and obviously there's the literal of these people having to fight to survive, but then there's just layers upon layers of psychologically what it means, and trying to, you know, have your own sanity. And then it was just about getting to work with, you know, a good group of actors and get to work with Brad Anderson, and the sort of the contain of the movie, you know, kind of felt like a play to me. So it was like having to go make a movie and make a play at the same time.
I think it was really about trusting Brad, because with a film like this, you can imagine with this kind of situation, it could go as far as, I mean, it's very hard to really understand what a person would do in this situation. It was really a study of madness for me. And, I mean, it's unimaginable to be a woman in that situation, losing her child and humanity. So it was about trusting Brian, really. That was the bottom line for me. And allowing him to kind of dial us up or dial us down. And it worked. Bravo, it was amazing. That's the first time I've seen it, but it was fantastic.
Well, but, you know, like, how do you react to a wall that's brightly lit, that's supposed to have dark, creepy shadows creeping down? You know, you guys are really good at using your imagination. I guess a lot of actors now have to do that with the green screens and stuff. Use your imagination.
I thought that was also impressive that the effect, although we used probably a lot of visual effects to create that darkness, it's actually kind of the reverse of how most horror films now use CGI for that big physical threat, and kind of strip it back.
Yeah. I mean, I think that we wanted the shadows, the darkness, if you will, to be very organic and not. Occasionally, you see these figures in them, and you can interpret that as you will, whether these are the figures or shadow versions of these characters, or whether they're sort of loved ones trying to pull them into the other side or whatever. But we always kept. We wanted the shadows, the movement of the shadows, to have an organic quality. We looked at a lot of odd images of movies of slime molds. You know, I don't know if you've ever seen fast motion, quick move of slime molds, the way they kind of move across the surface, or the way that water or an ink blot will kind of move on a piece of paper. Try to create this sort of sense of organic movement in the shadow effects, so that it felt somehow real. Like, the idea was like, whatever the heck is happening, we wanted it to feel somewhat in the world of plausibility. And you know, the question of what is happening and what has actually taken place is, of course, you know, I always deflect that question back to the audience, because to me the thing that's interesting is let the audience sort of, let the viewer kind of come up with their own interpretation. You know, whether this is a sort of religious apocalypse, is this the rapture, is this the second coming, or is this, as John so eloquently says, is this, you know, a physics experiment going wrong? Is it like a nanotech run amok? I mean, what the hell is happening? You know, so each character is sort of looking for his or her own explanation. Sort of Hayden's character plays this kind of more of the man of action. You know, like, my job is just to sort of get us out of this predicament. Of course, Tandy's character is looking for some kind of, you know, religious or spiritual explanation. So it was interesting. I thought that was what, again, about the script that interested me was all those, how the characters each essentially confronted their own mortality and how they would do that.
Well, so we don't have much time. Let me just do 2 questions from the audience here.
During the bar scenes, what I noticed was that when there was particular moments of despair, anger, dark emotions, or when they were starting to lose hope, there was also a lack of light. Was that deliberate, or was that just a figment of my imagination?
Well, no, I think that the idea was that, you know, almost like the darkness begins to become more tumultuous, like, based on their fear of it, you know what I mean? Obviously there's this notion in the story, it's not a hard and fast rule, but there's this notion that, like, you know, light is a protective force and darkness is a sort of life-pulling force. And, you know, we went with the idea that when these characters, you know, the idea was to sort of build the story in such a way that it just gets progressively more, the darkness gets progressively more scary and more aggressive, you know what I mean? So by the end of it, it's like attacking in a way. But yes, it's I guess you could say that, you know, their emotional state maybe is even kind of reflected in the darkness. We played with that idea, yeah.
One last question here. Yes, inside, sir. Well, you know, repeat the question there.
Yeah, the question was in the beginning, John Leguizamo's character, the projectionist, is looking through a book on the kind of mysteries of the world, and one of them is matter versus antimatter, and the other is this whole notion, this whole story about the lost colony of Roanoke. Dark matter, right? Yeah, right. Well, I'm not a physicist, so I don't know what the difference is. Dark matter, right? The mystery of dark matter. What is it? It comprises 80% of the universe or something. Well, we had there were all sorts of, we threw in lots of other things into the pot, like explanations like that. The idea was to toss out explanations, and And because, what would you do in a certain situation like that? You'd be reaching and striving to find some explanation for this madness, this inexplicable event. The more inexplicable it is, the more you're struggling to find an answer. And Croatoan could, he sees that word at the end. Maybe that maybe that resonates as John's character says in that one scene. It's like, maybe Croatoan is like, the sort of, your computer is crashing. Maybe the whole universe, maybe existence itself is crashing. I always like, my theory is that that everything is some kind of like computer simulation that is being shut down by some higher intelligence. That's just my theory.
So on that note, let's hear it for Brad Anderson. For Midnight Madness, and be also sure to check out the Midnight Madness blog and